yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee just released a report on their investigation to Coupang. So if you don't know what Coupang is an American company, but it does 96% of their operations in Korea. So it is basically the Korean Amazon. Koreans don't use Amazon, but they use Coupang. So yeah, it's the same thing. You buy a bunch of products digitally. It's e-commerce, mass e-commerce. And the House Judiciary Committee, led by Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio, just completed their investigation and released a report yesterday of their findings about Coupang. Now, Coupang has been investigated and attacked by the Lee Jae-myung administration for months now. So back in November 2025, Coupang had a data breach because of, lo and behold, a Chinese employee who leaked data of millions upon millions of customers, their personal info, address, banking info, all of their very precious personal information, and leaked it to the public and to other companies and other foreign entities. And because of that, the Lee Jae-myung administration fined Coupang $410 million for their security breach. Now, that has been a source of contention, huge source of contention among conservatives and liberals in Korea. A lot of conservatives are very, very pissed about this because, as you guys know, conservatives in Korea are very pro-America. So they see Lee Jae-myung attacking an American company and they don't like it. But this has soured relations between America and Korea because if the Korean government is attacking and so viciously investigating and raiding an American company, even though they do the majority of their operations in Korea and most of their customers are in Korea, it's still an American-based company that is on the New York Stock Exchange, incorporated in Delaware, based in Seattle. Yeah, American lawmakers and American people in general are going to be pissed. Like Trump's going to be pissed. Now we have this right here from CNBC. South Korean government discriminated against Coupang U.S. companies. House report finds. So here's the key points right here. The South Korean government acted in a discriminatory manner towards certain U.S. companies, especially and including U.S.-based online retailer Coupang. The report said South Korea's actions violate a trade agreement negotiated last year by President Trump. The South Korea's targeting of Coupang stemmed from a data breach in 2025 and led to regulators in the country launching dozens of investigations, levying excessive fines, and threatening criminal charges for company executives, according to the committee. Now, one thing we know is that Korea and America had a trade deal since 2012, and it was renegotiated last year in 2025 because, especially, President Trump's tariffs. His global tariffs had everyone they're in a frenzy, in a panic. Oh no, how are we gonna do things? The consumer prices for our products is gonna go up in America for American customers. So South Korea negotiated a lower tariff rate with Trump in exchange for investments in U.S. shipbuilding and national security, as well as regulatory rollbacks for American companies. So as part of the trade deal negotiation last year, Lee Jae-myung's administration said, yes, we will roll back regulatory redlining for American companies. And lo and behold, they didn't. They are viciously attacking Coupang, American company, while, for example, in May 2025, Temu, you all know Temu. It's like the worst. The worst quality products ever, but so cheap. I'm not gonna, I've bought stuff from Temu too. I think all of us have. But Temu had a huge data breach in May of 2025 where they leaked millions of South Korean users, again, personal information, their address, their credit card, banking info. They were fined less than $1 million. So Temu has a data breach and a leak in their security, only fined $1 million, less than $1 million. Meanwhile, Coupang is fined $410 million. Do you not see why people are pissed off? Do you not see why American politicians and lawmakers are looking at this situation saying, hey, isn't this a clear intentional attack on American corporations, American companies? Why would you do this? And it's because, and this is why people say that Lee Jae-myung is beholden to China. It is so asymmetrical, the implementation of justice, right? Like protectionism. Oh, we want to prioritize Korean companies. That's what they say. Well, you're completely destroying an American company. Think about how they went after Starbucks too. And Starbucks is under Shinsegae, so it's technically a Korean company in Korea. So Shinsegae owns the rights to Starbucks. But even think about how the left completely viciously destroyed Starbucks because of the Tank Day controversy. But then Temu, Shein, AliExpress, oh, they're left alone when we know for a fact that these Chinese companies are taking Korean information, and a lot of Chinese employees and like residents, immigrants, Chinese nationals are taking Korean IP and bringing it back to China. This is all documented. This is not conspiracy. This is not, xenophobia, as they call it, just racism and hate against Chinese people. This is just objectively what's happening. Because China, for all its faults, is a serious country that puts its interests first, and it will play dirty and do whatever it takes to enrich itself and become more powerful. That's the game China is playing. Meanwhile, Korea is like, oh yeah, Chinese people, they're all human beings, which is true. Therefore, we need to allow for Chinese nationals to flood into Korea, take Korean jobs, and then sell Korean data back to China and foreign entities. You literally saw this with XAI. Remember the H-1B Chinese national who took XAI code and sold it to OpenAI and then fled the country? Which is the reason why I think Elon Musk has rolled back against his attack against people who criticize H-1Bs. So because of this, though, like this was actually kind of crazy. The Lee Jae-myung administration forced Coupang to go track down the previous Coupang employee. So the previous Coupang employee who leaked all the data was a Chinese national. And the Lee Jae-myung administration forced Coupang to track down this employee and then also hire scuba divers to go to the bottom of a Chinese river to obtain a computer that had all the data. So look at this story from the New York Post. US-based Amazon of South Korea forced to recover laptop from bottom of a Chinese river in bizarre data privacy clampdown. So if you move down, South Korea's government allegedly forced a US web retailer to carry out a bizarre and risky plot to recover a stolen laptop from the bottom of a river in China, part of a high-level data privacy clampdown, as that U.S. officials claim is the latest example of the country's anti-American tech regulations run amok. So we know that it says 90% of the business, but it's upwards of actually 96% of its business, Coupang does in South Korea, and believed it had no choice but to hire scuba divers for the James Bond-style caper as top South Korean regulators pressed for an elaborate probe of a November data breach that affected 33 million customers. So right here, you have a picture of the MacBook Pro that was recovered from the bottom of a Chinese river. It's kind of like, what? And so if you move down, South Korea's National Intelligence Service, the NIS, denied any involvement, which is obviously false, and Coupang compiled a host of evidence to the contrary, including messages from a senior government aide affirming that South Korea's president had been briefed on the operation. The highest levels of South Korean government, including President Lee Jae-myung himself, knew that the NIS has been closely instructing Coupang on the recovery operation and that Coupang acted in response to these directives. So, Coupang faced 40 investigations from 11 different South Korean agencies, threats of travel bans for its executives, and potential fines up to 10% of its global revenue. On June 11th, South Korea's Personal Information Protection Commission fined Coupang $410 million, nearly twice its profit last year, after finding that the company had illegally harvested company data. Move down, please. So now, this mission happened in December. The December mission focused on a rogue Coupang employee, a Chinese national, who had allegedly extracted the personal data of 3,000 customers, a tiny fraction of the 33 million who were caught in a massive data breach, as the company reported on November 27th, fled to Shanghai. Coupang contacted the rogue employee who confessed and agreed to turn over several devices linked to the theft, except for a laptop he had tossed into a Shanghai river in a panic. So Korea's NIS told Coupang that its agents couldn't personally retrieve the devices because Chinese law bars foreign intelligence agencies from operating on its soil. Instead, it ordered Coupang to send one of its own employees to collect the devices and the rogue employee's fingerprints, all under the Chinese government's nose. So this is the photo of the Shanghai River where a rogue Coupang employee threw a laptop tied to the data breach. It is kind of crazy how they're able to obtain this in the middle of China in a river in Shanghai. But they did it. They found it. If you can move down. And so, yeah, Coupang compiled hiring a scuba diving team to fish the device out of the grimy water, and they got it. And so, after the dangerous recovery operation was deemed a success, South Korea's National Intelligence Service stunned Coupang officials by denying any participation, according to the report to the House Judiciary Committee, which is chaired by Representative Jim Jordan. So right now, this is actually a source of contention. I know a lot of people in the American public and the American zeitgeist, this is not an issue of contention per se, because typically Americans have a very broadly positive view of Korea, consider Korea an ally. A lot of Americans, they understand that they use Korean products, whether it's a Samsung refrigerator or an LG OLED screen. Whether they understand that a lot of their screens, like the screen right now that I'm looking at this iPad on, or the screen that you're watching this broadcast on, is made by Koreans. So people appreciate that. On top of that, loving Korean culture and Korean food and K-pop and Korean dramas. So Americans have a broad, I think, positive view of Korea. But right now, it's souring in D.C. and among lawmakers in Congress. They're not very happy about this. Now, what's the takeaway from this? Well, first of all, there's no reason to be so aggressively going and destroying Coupang like this, because we want, as Korea, America to be a strategic ally. But the justification for doing so actually isn't terrible. What I mean by that is that Korean people, the Korean government, the Korean public should prioritize Korean companies first. Isn't this the whole point of Trumpism? The Trumpism brought that back to the forefront of saying actually protectionism and putting American people first, American companies first, is actually a sane, good economic policy. Because what does the government exist for? It exists for the citizens of that country. Why would you, on the altar of increasing your GDP and increasing the bottom line of multinational corporations, why would you enrich foreign companies and multinational corporations over American corporations? And that's the whole point of the tariffs. The whole point of the tariffs is so that American citizens and the American public would be incentivized to do business and buy products and services from American companies over foreign companies. Yeah, AliExpress and Temu, Shein might have nice, cheap prices for cheap products that just get the job done. But how does that benefit America long term? It doesn't. It makes us beholden to China. Us offshoring all of our manufacturing to China because it's cheaper and they have child slave labor over there. How does that benefit America long term? It doesn't. We have offshored so much of our manufacturing to China that we are literally held by the balls by the CCP that America can't really do anything. Because economically, China controls so much of America. How does that benefit America? It doesn't. It actually doesn't. So Trumpism is all about protectionism and putting American companies first, not just merely about consumer prices and the GDP. That standard should be applied to Korea. So Korean companies should come first. And people say, KakaoTalk had a data breach. They were only fined 11 million. Well, yeah, because it's a Korean company. Objectively speaking, yes, you should make it harder for foreign companies to operate and do business in Korea and make it easier for Korean businesses to do business. Now, I'm not saying be harsh and cruel and evil against American companies, but you should prioritize Korean companies over American companies. This is how Korea became so rich in the first place. Park Chung-hee's protectionist policies and 재벌 system that his mindset was not, hey, let's rely on and let's hold on to foreign powers for help. No, his mindset was, we can live in a rich country as Koreans. We can be wealthy and prosperous as Koreans by the might and strength of Koreans. That's how Hyundai, Samsung, Kia, LG, now SK Hynix, Kakao, how these huge corporations, conglomerates became so big. It is that Korean resilience and the spirit of Korean protectionism. So when we think about companies like Coupang, then maybe if Coupang is 96% of its operations, its revenue comes from Koreans, it is literally the Korean Amazon. The founder was a Korean American, and the previous CEO was a Korean. Maybe you should just make it into a Korean company. Now, I know that's really difficult because it was incorporated and it's headquartered in America. It's on the New York Stock Exchange. There's a lot of paperwork and filings and fees, and it's going to cost a lot. But at the end of the day, if they're already paying $410 million because they're an American company and the administration is going so hard after them, why not take all of that capital and just incorporate it as a Korean company? Because it is, by and large, and for all intents and purposes, a Korean company. The average American does not know what Coupang is. The average Korean, every single Korean knows what Coupang is because it is the Korean Amazon. So is it really an American company at this point? No, it's just an American company because it is under the New York Stock Exchange and it's under U.S. law, but it does all of its business in Korea. So Korea needs to move towards a place, and Korean politics need to understand this too, where South Korea shouldn't be playing geopolitical games with two major powers that's caught in the middle of. It should be a proper mediary. Like Korea can see itself as a proper mediary between China and America and position itself as an independent, sovereign, powerful nation. So there's really no good reason to show favoritism towards any company besides Korean companies. That's what a proper country that protects its own industry does. And so the overt persecution of Coupang, which is so insane, it doesn't benefit anyone. They claim it's because they want to help Korean companies and hold American companies accountable. But again, you don't do anything to Shein and AliExpress, and you only find Temu $1 million. Obviously, there's clear preferential treatment here for Chinese companies. People are pissed about this. So that being said, Koreans really should focus more on how to support Korean companies over foreign brands and companies. It's not about, oh, Korea hates America. Because I don't think Lee Jae-myung explicitly hates America. I just think he's stupid and he is too beholden to Chinese interests. But the takeaway is that actually Koreans should try to move towards sovereignty, because that's actually what made Korea strong in the first place. It was Koreans' own economic development, cultural development. That's what attracted the whole world to K-pop in the first place, by the way. When I was growing up listening to K-pop, it was mostly in Korean. Now it's mostly in English because they're trying to appeal to a global audience. And then now they have, recently there's like this black K-pop idol now who's debuting. And then you have their foreign K-pop groups. Like, at what point is it Korean anymore? It's not Korean if it's not with and for Koreans. And you should have that mindset for the economy too, that Korean businesses come first over American businesses, over Chinese businesses. I'm not saying that America should be deprioritized and American companies should be punished, but Korean companies should come first. And they really need to refocus on employing Koreans first. When I say deportations and remigration, I'm not just talking about dark-skinned people because I'm racist and it's a matter of national security, especially in Korea. We already know that it's a matter of national security in America, where CCP spies are coming in as birth tourists and having tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of babies in American soil. And because there's birthright citizenship, these children of Chinese spies and these Chinese nationals, they have American citizenship that can eventually they can vote in American elections and eventually run for office, even the presidency. How absurd is that? So we see that happening in America. It's also happening in Korea to a larger extent because Korea's right next to China. So, we already have blatant technology theft, technological and IP theft from China. And, it's really, really, really incumbent on Koreans to understand this, that mass deportations, remigration, protecting your country is not only a matter of protecting your heritage and national identity, it's also a matter of national security. You have foreign nationals coming to your country, stealing your IP, stealing your data, leaking data. Like that's where the focus should be. The focus should not be, oh, the Lee Jae-myung administration is so mean to American companies. Like that's a factor, I'm sure, and that's bad. But from a Korean standpoint, Koreans need to understand that the way forward is not to say, oh, like Lee Jae-myung just hates America for no reason. But the way forward is to then say, okay, then how can we incorporate Coupang into becoming a sovereign, powerful Korean company? And then also, how can we continue to support Korean businesses for Korean industry first and foremost? And without sacrificing the strategic alliance that Korea has with America. But right now, the Lee Jae-myung administration is just inflaming tensions with America and not doing very great and going against the terms of the trade deal negotiations that happened in 2025, where they said they'd roll back regulatory means on American companies, and yet they're aggressively, just seriously, viciously attacking Coupang. So I thought that story was funny. It was really like a James Bond story, like straight up diving to secure a MacBook Pro that had a bunch of data on it that was precious to Coupang. And then you have the Lee Jae-myung administration saying that we don't know, we were involved when they clearly were instructed. Coupang was clearly instructed by Lee Jae-myung's administration to secure this laptop. But Koreans need to, I really do think that the Korean right wing needs to kind of rethink and reframe this issue, talking more about Korean sovereignty. And then one of the ways that you do so is through mass deportations and remigration. Because once you have just the amount of Chinese people I see whenever I go to Korea is actually staggering. On the subway, it's just tons of Chinese people talking in Chinese. And yeah, some of them tourists, but others, they live in Korea. They're residents. So if you want to have a future for Korea, the focus isn't liberal democracy. I'm sorry to say that. Oh, you're just a foreigner talking about foreign Korean politics. You don't understand Korean politics. Okay, then why do you bend over backwards for people like Morse Tan and Dr. Douglas Frank? Morse Tan, who doesn't speak a lick of Korean. Dr. Frank, who doesn't speak a lick of Korean. You bend over backwards for these people because they tell you what you want to hear. Meanwhile, I'm trying to reorient Korean politics, or actually help to reorient Korean politics towards a place of actual sovereignty and an actual future for the Korean people. Because when you lose your people, you don't have a nation anymore. Doesn't matter what ideals you uphold. You don't have a country anymore when your people are replaced and your people die. Oh no, you don't understand Korean politics. All right, well, I'm trying here, and I know there's a lot of Korean patriots who agree with what I have to say, that the focus isn't liberal democracy, and it can't be the focus of Korean politics moving forward. It has to be Korean sovereignty. It has to be. It has to be Korean sovereignty. And whatever system of governance happens to achieve that means it is what it is. But you can't say as a Korean right-winger and a Korean conservative that you love Park Chung-hee and then also say that liberal democracy is the only thing we have to protect and the only important thing to protect in Korean politics. Park Chung-hee was not a proponent of liberal democracy. He was a dictator. But he did well for the country. And he was an awesome, awesome leader for Korea at the time. So I hope Koreans can rethink this issue, but we'll see. Koreans are high IQ, but they're also very passionate people. And that's kind of like the faults of Korea. That's why they have so many cults as well.